Hello, 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 and welcome to part 3 of the Sweden Starting Steps series. In the previous episode, we finished off by putting ourselves in a position to start utilizing a negative weekly balance. In this episode, we'll work towards getting to a point where we can now utilize debt. Our interest rate is 12.2%, which isn't bad, but also not good. We want it to be just a little bit lower and have a few more construction points so that our private sector can build a little bit more in order to make sure our debt limit rises with our debt accumulation. Our paper company has reached prosperity, so now we want to work towards getting our paper production into the top 3 globally so that we can start producing the prestige good craft paper. Let's dive in. So when looking at the Swedish Paper Corporation, we can see we have one charter to give out. Our company has reached prosperity, so we will give them trade rights so that they can start to build trade centers, and it will increase the trade advantage on any of these exports of paper, as well as wood. All right, so we have Fieldworks. Figures representing the industrialists have approached elements of the landowners looking for support in a hypothetical plot against the government. So we do not want this, so we will let the coup retreat. All right, so we are going to put this furniture manufacturer up for sale. There's a very high productivity, so very high likelihood it will sell. And it did immediately. In the midst of the debate surrounding racial segregation, one of the country's leading playwrights, strongly associated with the petite bourgeoisie, has staged a widely acclaimed play whose politically laden theme makes no secret of the author's desire for the law to be passed. So we generally want to take the first option on this, unless there's some special circumstances, and there isn't right now, so we'll get plus 10% on that. We also have another level of furniture manufacturing, so let's put it up for sale. So you can see we now have a regional HQ in Svealand, the Hudson's Bay Company. They are building ports right now, but we will keep an eye on this to make sure they don't take too much of our reinvestment. Elias Casperson, a general associated with the landowners, has been accused of grave disloyalty. Elias Casperson claims that this is nothing but a plot by subversive elements to remove a barrier to their rule. Well, let's take a look here. He is a pretty good general, so we don't necessarily want to lose him. We'll lose 5% authority, but and officers will lose political strength, so we will go with that. And now we can start working towards creating craft paper, which is the prestige good for our paper company. So we need to get into the top 3 producers of paper. So let's take a look at where we are with that. And we are number 6. So we need to get up to 969 in order to get there. So about 350 or so units. So at this point, the export of paper is going well for us. We have a pretty good trade advantage, plus 18%. So we don't need to be paying subventions for the export. We don't want to add a low tariff though, because we do want to promote more exports in order for there to be more paper produced. The most prominent members of Svealand high society have been organizing luxurious parties in the new and lavish urban buildings. So we get more loyalists, or we can get much more if we raise the minimum expected standard of living for the upper strata by 3. If we look here, we are well above it at the moment. And if we take a look at Svealand, we are even more above it here. So we will take the second option. All right, we now have rifles. The industrialist supporters in the diplomatic corps have offered to reach out to the British government for support in their bid for power in return for certain future obligations. So this first option, again, we don't want the coup to succeed, so we won't be taking that. So we'll do this and give a little bit of political strength to the industrialists. So these universities are going to add more demand for paper. In fact, let's take a look at all the universities. Let's switch to the philosophy department and to secular academia. All right, we have nitroglycerin. So we can now add another production method in the production of resources here. So we do need to get explosives going. At the moment, we don't have any explosives factories. If we take a look at our market and take a look at our resources, so we could use a little bit more iron, though our company is building 2 more levels of it. So what we will do is, after these universities are built, we're going to build 2 more levels of the construction sector, and then we're going to start working towards getting some explosives going, because if we need more resources for the construction sector, we can use the production methods to accommodate that. 1 explosives factory will need 20 fertilizer, 20 sulfur. We can cover that and more with 1 fertilizer plant. So we'll need 10 iron and 30 sulfur. So you add in the sulfur from here. We'll need about 50 sulfur and 10 iron. The iron will be fine if we get the explosives. So really, we need to build a explosive factory, a fertilizer plant, but make sure we have 50 sulfur to cover this. So our market has about plus 16 right now. Our main source of sulfur at the moment is in Western Norway. We could build more here. There are peasants available there, but we don't have any control over the production methods here. Now we can build sulfur here in Swedish Togo. 10,000 peasants, 20,000 unemployed. So we can build here. 1 level will give us 20. So we're going to build 2 levels of sulfur mine. So we will build it here in Jutland. We will build first the fertilizer plant and then the explosives factory. Now, eventually we want to start utilizing Norland because they get a plus 20% iron mines building throughput. And so we are going to try to focus a lot of steel production up here. We will start off with an iron mine or 2, but we'll start to build steel mills here and hope that our company will start to build iron mines here as well. An eruption of unprecedented records has utterly destroyed the lives of many Dutch East Indies in the state of West Java. The explosion of the Krakatoa could be heard from hundreds of miles away, and anything that had the ill fate of surrounding the island was immediately devastated. So we're going to get the new Krakatoa eruption journal entry, regardless of which one we choose. We can improve relations with the Dutch East Indies if we pay 560 pounds of government expenses, but we don't really care about improving relations with them, so we'll take this one. And so now we have this new journal entry that tracks the Krakatoa eruption. The aftermath of the volcanic eruption in West Java is still affecting the world's climate, increasing the frequency and severity of frost, hailstorm, disease outbreak, and torrential rains harvest conditions until temperature levels have recovered. Your states that are currently affected by this devastation of the tsunami, so we have no state currently affected, so we will see an increase in these harvest conditions, but we don't have a state that is immediately affected by it. All right, law progressed to voting. The king himself has officially opened the University of Scania. Academia is beginning to flourish in Sweden. Excellent. Protests supported by the Church of Sweden have flooded the streets of Svealand, condemning the presence of groups within the government that support presidential republic. So we can take this, we'll lose a little bit of legitimacy, a little bit of authority. However, the Church of Sweden will gain some political strength, but the coup's progress will retreat. Or we could take this one, but we would like the coup's progress to retreat for a little bit. Now we should start to address our legitimacy, because if we look at our radicals here, we have many more radicals than loyalists. If you look at the tooltip here, over the last year, we've gained 125,000, and the biggest factors are from low legitimacy and a decrease in standard of living. So if we take the radical party out of government, we will stop gaining radicals. By being in an unacceptable government, we gain radicals. So we will try to just keep the People's Party in power here. In one fell swoop, Bjorn Beckman has been decisively removed from power before he could execute his coup and institute presidential republic. Though democracy lives on for now, the industrialists have not taken kindly to their political exile. Right, so we get 2 approval from the Church of Sweden if we take this one, but -10 from the industrialists. We could get +2 approval for the Church of Sweden and -10 for the industrialists if we take this. though 10% of them will also become radical. Or if we take this, we'll only get -8 interest group approval and only +5% radicals from the industrialists. We'll take this one because the only thing we really lose is the +2 approval from the church. So we completed the path to liberalism. So the intelligentsia, under the leadership of Jacob Hurlenius, has ushered in an era of liberal politics that promises a freer society where all citizens have a part in the political process. So with each option, we'll get the freedom of trade, freedom of thought journal entry, but we can give this guy +50 popularity, or we can change the leader of our petite bourgeoisie's ideology from traditionalist to radical, or we can change the ideology of our armed forces leader to reformer. Now, the petite bourgeoisie being on traditionalist is not great, so we are going to change the ideology of our petite bourgeoisie leader. And now this will probably get the petite bourgeoisie to leave the Lentmana party. We can also try to make the industrialists radical. Oh yes, but we need to get the approval of this person up, which is why we're going for racial segregation. Gustav Adam Holmgren, a prominent member of the People's Party, has been accused of gross corruption. He strenuously denied all allegations until damning letters surfaced signed by him. So we don't want that one. Could have him lose 25 popularity. He is loved at the moment. Or the People's Party only loses 10%. So we'll have him, he can afford to lose some popularity. All right, and we have racial segregation. Now you can see the only thing we have to do to change the leader of our industrialists is have them part of the government. So we will throw them back in. And now Nicholas Ackerman is the leader of our industrialists. So he does have expensive tastes, so we'll make sure he doesn't become the leader of the country. He does have interest group political strength, so the industrialists are now the most powerful interest group, and +50% attraction of interest groups in government. So that means the trade unions and the intelligentsia will also benefit from this. But you can see this now lets us have the Radical Party and the industrialists in government, and it bumps us up to only a contested government with 71 legitimacy. All right, so now there's a couple laws we're going to change. We can change our labor association law to right to associate. It looks like this one will go through pretty quickly. We want to get off of migration controls, though it looks like this one will take a little bit of pushback. And we want to get off of child labor allowed. So the first one we'll do is our labor association law, since it looks like we can get this through pretty quickly. So this will give some political strength to our trade unions, less radicals from political movements, and the labor movement will get more people. So let's go with that. A minor scandal has buzzed around the People's Party as a piece of reformist fiction written by Arnold Martinson in his youth has begun to circulate once more. Whilst enthusiastically written, that is the work's only merit. So we'll lose 10%, but our trade union agitator will lose some popularity, so we'll do that. Now, it does look like the Lentmana party is heavily favored to win this election with only 117 days left. So we do still have this lobby opportunity here that we declare a rivalry with Spain. We can either do this and add +3 approval to the lobby, or not do it and get -5. If we take a look at who's in the anti-Spanish League, it is the intelligentsia and the rural folk. Although it does look like now the rural folk are marginalized, which isn't so great. I do like the benefits that we can get from them, even if their laws ultimately aren't the best. But with this lobby losing 5 approval, they're already at +2, so it'll just equal out to the intelligentsia losing 3 approval, and they're pretty happy right now. So we'll let this be, and we won't declare the rivalry with Spain. A lowborn man has risen as the popular leader of the intelligentsia, with some not so pleased by such social mobility. So our current leader of the intelligentsia is a moderate. It's likely we could get a radical from the new person and So have them align a little bit. And by them, I mean the Intelligentsia and Trade Union Party with the Radical Party of the Industrialists. So it looks like this person is making the Intelligentsia lose 5% political strength, though they are getting plus 10% pop traction. That's not so great. So we are going to take a gamble and let this happen. So we did get a radical as the leader of the Intelligentsia now, Bo Headland, and so he's a master bureaucrat. So now we get a plus 5% interest group political strength, so a 10% swing, but negative 5% interest group pop attraction, so a kind of 15% swing on that. And although he is compliant though, so negative 10% interest group political strength. So in the end, the same political strength. We went from having negative 5% political strength to now having plus 5%, a negative 10% equaling out to a negative 5%. But we do get plus 2 government interest group approval. However, it is helpful that we do have a radical now because hopefully we can get these two parties aligned a little bit and get the alliance of the trade unions and the industrialists. The ongoing election has drawn attention to the platforms of various contending parties. Across Sweden, the electorate debates which party is worth trusting with the next term in government. So add plus 30% momentum to the People's Party, plus 30% to the Radical Party, or the Lantmännen Party. Now, the People's Party is at 29% already. It's also very likely that the Intelligentsia will join the Radical Party, so we will try to add some momentum to the Radical Party here. Either way, the Lantmännen Party is going to win this election. All right, law progressed to drafting. So we're now at 60 construction points. Let's take a look at our construction sector. So we could use a little bit of iron, could use a lot of wood. The tools are okay, and fabric's okay. So iron and wood, which we do have companies for that will be taking care of that. We can see here the iron company is working towards taking care of that. And now we just need the paper company here to start building. Let's take a look at populations here. We still have peasants, so we don't need to be utilizing any labor-saving PMs yet. Alright, so the Lantmännen Party has won, so we are going to have to put them into government if we want to stay out of an unacceptable government. So we'll do this for now. We will have the petite bourgeoisie in government here, who is led by a radical, at least for now. So we will go with this. Sensing a chance to disadvantage their economic rivals in the cities, prominent members of the landowners have come out in favor of enacting right to associate. And we don't want to add too much political strength to the landowners, especially since they're being led by an authoritarian right now. They are down at 11%, but we can also just get 10% here and not give them anything. So we'll take that. The animist rights movement has organized mass protests across the Scania region. While the protests have remained peaceful for now, local authorities have raised concerns about possible violence. So we can give the animist rights movement more pop attraction, and we'll get some loyalists out of it, though there will be an increase in radicals from political movements, plus 15%, though if we take this, it'll become plus 25%. So we will allow them to air their concerns. Now, what they want is total separation and legal guardianship. If they get above 50% activism here, they can start to cause obstinance. If that happens, we can start working towards total separation, though we do want to keep the church somewhat happy because we would like to get to work ethic here. You can see since the Church of Sweden is now powerful, their benefit doubles, so it's now a plus 10% company throughput bonus. All right, we have postal savings, so we get some investment pool contribution efficiency bonuses, as well as an increase to our maximum cash reserves. This afternoon, Gustav Adam Holmgren, leader of the trade unions, delivered a fiery speech advocating for the enactment of right to associate. So we can get plus 10% and give the trade union some benefit, or take the 15. We'll take the benefit to the trade unions. We'll take the plus 10%. After we're done with the explosives factory, we will expand the construction sectors again. Now we are in a little bit of debt. Not too bad, since we do have a low interest rate. Our interest is pretty low, but we will still look to sell some buildings. The news of the government's efforts to enshrine the right to associate has spread rapidly through working-class communities. The industrialists have begun to complain of a corresponding uptick in illegal union activity. So we can get plus 20%, but lose 3 approval from the industrialists. We'll lose the additional tax income, minting tax income, and capitalist investment pool contribution, but we won't be too far off of it. So yeah, we'll take the plus 20%, get that through. People have been complaining about the difference in living standards between us and our neighbors in Norway. So we can make the trade unions a little happier and give them some political strength. We could deteriorate relations with Norway or get more radicals. We will do this. We do need to start looking at our standard of living. After these next 2 construction sectors, we'll look to see if we need to add some input buildings to it, but if not, we will start tackling some of the buildings that our pops need. On average, they're paying plus 20% compared to the base price, so that is pretty high. We can also see the leader of our trade unions retired, and so our new guy is a radical as well, so we can possibly have the trade unions, intelligentsia, and industrialists join together in a party. He's also giving plus 5% political strength to the trade unions, but -2 to opposition interest groups. The idea here is if I can get the People's Party and the Radical Party to join together, it'll just be a more powerful party to take on the Lentmana party. And considering our king is the part of the intelligentsia, if we can get that People's Radical Party, as I'll call them, into government, we'll have a much more of a legitimate government. Though previously opposing the right to associate laws, Arnold Martinson has considered the petite bourgeoisie's political position and instead offers support. Yeah, we'll take this and get the plus 10% enactment success chance. So now we really should be advancing to voting at the next checkpoint, which will be June 3rd. All right, law progressed to voting. We're now at 80% success, and the next checkpoint is in September. And we have logistics. So now we work on pharmaceuticals with only 7 months left. So actually our next law, we might finally add a healthcare institution. We've been holding off to get pharmaceuticals so that we can get the public health insurance law. All right, we now have a fertilizer plant. So we'll let it higher up a little bit here. All right, so law advanced. So it's at 95% with a 0 stall. So I certainly hope on December 20th we get a passage of it. But let's create more of a need for fertilizer. Let's take a look at our farms. So we will add it to the millet farms. Yeah, and that's all we're going to be able to add at the moment. We could probably add some more farms to make the price of grain a little better. But once this explosives factory finishes, that will also create more of a need for the fertilizer. The Church of Sweden wished to strengthen our ties to Norway through our shared faith. So we wouldn't mind getting some approval from the church. The intelligentsia is already happy, so we'll take this. And we have right to associate. Now in 4 weeks, we're going to have pharmaceuticals. So we're actually going to wait to pass a law until we get pharmaceuticals. So Spain would like an investment rights agreement. This will upset the anti-Spanish league here. They're already at a -3 appeasement, but on top of that, we do have 4 countries building here already, so we don't really need investment rights with them, and we have more to build here. So this will be an investment rights agreement that we will actually try to negotiate it we can get something different from them. So it's possible we can do trade privileges. It looks like we can buy silk from them. We are importing 164 units of luxury clothes. If we switch to this, we'll start to produce 92, and we would need 46 units of silk. So we can do this deal with Great Qing and get us some silk so that we can start to produce fancy clothes ourselves and not have to import it as much. And we can sell some coal and some lead for it. So why don't we do this for about 15 years? There's a 70% chance they take it. All right, and they did it. So when we look at our market now, we have quite a bit of silk. So we're going to go to our textile mills. And we're going to switch to this, and we're going to start adding a large tariff, a high tariff on the import of this. so that they stop importing as much of the good. Vivid red sunsets were reported for several months across the country. Fire engines were even called out in Gotland to quench the apparent conflagration. Many artists and academics have expressed their interest in this phenomenon. Yeah, so we could get it throughput to our arts academies or our universities. With the university one, volcanic eruptions will be less damaging, but we do want to take the plus 15% university building throughput. All right, and we have pharmaceuticals, and we have crystal glass, so we can utilize more of our lead. So we will do this. It says that it'll bring down the profitability, but I believe that's mainly because our cost of lead... Oh, no, lead is still actually pretty good. So we'll move to crystal glass. And also, we're now going to go for public health insurance. All right, and we have the explosives factory. So let's see if we need to add this anywhere. Of course, at the moment we do not, but we could start adding some steel. Now we do need to add more to the research queue, so we're going for quinine. We would like to get down to steel frame buildings. At the moment, we're getting tech spread on central banking. So we will go for realism, organized sports. Whatever the tech spread moves to, we'll get off of the queue. And then the first thing we'll go for steel frame buildings. Before we go for the other company, we'll see where we are, because we do want to get down to open hearth process here. In fact, we are very close to finishing this end, so that's what we'll do. We're doing tech spread on baking powder, so we'll do mechanical workshop, chemical bleaching, and then we'll go for open hearth process, and then we can get LKAB. Now, these construction sectors are going to finish, so let's work on our standard of living here, because it is actually pretty low. So fish, clothes, and tobacco. So in Gotland here, we have 14,000 peasants. We could make this more of just an agricultural island. So it's 5,000 workers for each fishing wharf. So we'll add 3 of them here. Then we need to work on clothing. So we have the one in Svealand here that is producing fancy clothes. So we'll look at Jutland and start producing it here as producing another one here that will focus primarily on just non-luxury clothes. And we'll build 3 levels of it here. All right, so we're now up to 70 construction points. Let's check in. So iron is okay. Wood needs a lot of work, and so does fabric, and a little bit of tools. So even though we want the company, our company producing this wood, we are going to go ahead and make some, and we can always sell it back to the company. So we are going to make 2 logging camps. We also need fabric. So let's look at our colony in the Niger Delta. We have people. So let's take advantage of the other 2 cotton plantations here. So we'll do the logging, we'll do the cotton, and then we'll move on to the standard of living goods. So another diplomatic play to control Schleswig-Holstein. This time we'll wait a little bit and see who joins into this. Farmers in Jutland have been making appeals to the government about the dangers of the equipment they are using and would like to have some sort of health care to reduce the hardships for them. So we can increase mortality for 5 years, get a plus 40% enactment success chance, or we can just get the plus 10. Plus 2% isn't so bad. I might regret this one because of the increased mortality. You never want to... People are your most valuable resource, but a plus 40% is hard to say no to, so we'll do that. And Denmark backs down.
Well, that sucks.
All right, law progressive drafting. So we now have the extra cotton plantations. And so the price of cotton isn't so bad now, or fabric, I should say. So the price here is leveled off a little bit. So construction prices look okay. So we really could use more paper here. So we're going to go ahead and build some ourselves, and we can always sell this back to our company. We lose the benefit of the construction efficiency they add in for that, but it's not too terrible. So add 3 in Jutland. All right, we have central banking, so we get plus 10% in minting there. The arrest and alleged ill treatment of a disorderly protester affiliated with the animist rights movement has sparked resentment among his compatriots. Further demonstrations have been arranged urging his release. So we'll bring down the animist rights movement activism. What is it at? Yes. So by decreasing it 10%, we would like that a lot because we do have obstinance in our 2 colonies. We will anger the landowners, but we can afford to do it, so we will do that. So now you can see their activism is drifting to 42, and now they're no longer obstinate. An influential faction within the intelligentsia has grown frustrated with their co-members' neutrality on the topic of public health insurance. Themselves in favor of the law, they have resolved to form a separate political faction intent on passing it. We can gain 15% enactment success chance. We lose 5% to the pop traction of the intelligentsia. Or we can just take 10 and lose 15% on intelligentsia, but gain 10% on trade unions. I'd rather just take the full 15 enactment on this. Progress to voting. All right, and we have public health insurance. Now, we don't have enough to increase the institution yet, so let's build another government admin in Svealand. We'll do that after the paper mills. Looks like the price of dyes is going up. So we will build an additional one here in Togo. Also looks like we have access to some gold mines. So build some in North Borneo. And one there. Even though it doesn't seem like they have the people for it. We'll see what happens. The Patriotic Party. So we have the parties shift a little bit here. Let's take a look at this first. The high prices of groceries have become a prominent talking point in the People's Party election campaign, arguing that their free trade policies would drive down the price. So it looks like the People's Party is now just the intelligentsia, so we will add momentum to them. So we're in an illegitimate government. Yeah, so the petite bourgeoisie will now join the Radical Party. The armed forces split out of the Lantmana Party as well. So we can get the People's Party in there. And unfortunately, the trade unions seem to have dropped off. The Church of Sweden have formally censored Olof Lagerberg over an unconventional article in a Radical Party newspaper advocating for disruptive social policies. Yeah, so we'll take this, we'll add momentum to the Radical Party, as well as popularity to Olof Lagerberg, who is a positivist agitator that we have. The next law that we can actually move on to will be for National Guard, and so we will move to that. We do need to bring the trade unions back into the fold here. Our next election is in 142 days, so we do need to lower the momentum of the Lantmana Party here. All right, we have quinine, so our colonies should start moving along a little bit quicker. Ooh, we can see, though, Great Britain is cutting in there. And let's look to sell these textile mills. All right, so they're not going immediately, so we'll check back in on them. In a gesture of solidarity with the People's Party, Arnold Martinson has encouraged his supporters to vote for it in the ongoing election. All right, so we will take this option. All right, we have Screw Frigate. Wonderful. Parties, particularly the People's Party, are struggling to raise enough funds for all their campaigning needs this election. So we'll take 2 years of just 810 pounds of expenses for that momentum. A statue of King Oscar Bernadotte was commissioned, and it has been suggested that it be displayed proudly in Svealand. So I'd rather not take more radicals. We're trying to cut down on that, even with the increased prestige. So we'll actually take this. We can afford the landowners to not be as happy. Although Aaron Hackinson is still fighting for his cause, no one is following him anymore. Despondent, Hackinson has started publicly remarking that they may give up his activism altogether. So this is our land reformer trade unionist, which I don't mind having, because I would like to get to homesteading at some point here. So we'll tell him to keep fighting the good fight. The influx of foreign investment from Great Britain has aroused fears amongst nationalist groups. The petite bourgeoisie, ever wary of foreign subversion, have begun lobbying against British interests. So now we have an anti-British association along with a Swedish-British league. So let's take a look at how much of our country's GDP we own and who owns the rest of it. We can see here at the moment We only own 73.9% of our GDP. If we take a look, the highest shares owned by Great Britain, then the Ottomans, the US, Portugal, and the Dutch East Indies. So we can start looking at revoking some of these investment rights. And specifically with Great Britain, something that is worrisome is if you look at our private queue here, the regional HQ for the Hudson's Bay Company is starting to dominate our private investment queue. So we do need to address this regional HQ in our country. At the moment, they're only sending out 687 reinvestment, and so that's not terrible for us, but I would rather they stop expanding as much. If we look at some of the deals we made here, we can get rid of the investment rights with Great Britain. It's no longer binding, though we would like to keep the trade privileges. So let's see if we can renegotiate this. So there's a 50-50 chance they'll accept it. We'll set this for 25 years, because if the deal was just trade privileges between the two of us, then that's something we'll want for the long term. So we'll send this proposal, see if they take it. And they didn't. They declined it. So let's try to renegotiate this again. There isn't much else we can do. If we add goods transfers, it's going to make the article of trade privileges go even more into the negative for approval. Let's take a look at how much trade we are doing with Great Britain. So we are importing tobacco, which we can do on our own in our colonies. We're importing fabric. Again, our colonies can cover that. Coffee from them, we can take care of. Tea, we could take care of. It seems like most of the stuff we're importing from them, we can take care of on our own. And then the things we are exporting, we seem to be exporting quite a bit. They're buying our iron, they're buying our logging, our wood, our fish, our oil, our groceries, porcelain, and steel. So we are exporting quite a bit. So we really do want to keep these trade privileges. So something we can do, get rid of the investment rights and owe them an obligation for 25 years of trade privileges. So we have to wait for February 10th before we can try this again. All right, so now we'll send this and they will probably accept it. And they did. So there we go. All right, so Great Britain no longer has investment rights. Same thing with the Ottomans. Let's see if we can do a deal like that with them. So they say they won't accept this. Let's take a look at how much trade we do with the Ottomans. So this time we'll look at our trade tab on the market here. So we are importing fabric from them, quite a bit actually, and we're importing groceries. Not that much, though. So we can probably withdraw from this treaty. We're not doing enough trade with them to justify the investment right, so we're going to withdraw. Now we have the United States. Having trade privileges with them will be beneficial since, like Great Britain, they're a large market. But let's take a look at the trade we're doing right now. So we are exporting paper to them, which is something we want a good trade advantage on, since that's part of our company. We're importing clothes, which is fine, but we should be doing that ourselves. And we're exporting groceries to them. We're importing groceries and then exporting it. So the main thing would be paper. We would lose some trade advantage on paper. And it looks like of the 413 units we're exporting, 212 of those are going to the American market. So that is quite a bit. So let's see if we can renegotiate this deal. So there is a 52% chance they will just take the trade privileges. So once again, we'll set this for 25 years and we'll see if they take it. And they did. So there you go. Now we also have this investment rights deal with the Dutch East Indies. That is no longer binding. We can look to get rid of this. However, I would like to finish building these gold mines in the Dutch East Indies and North Borneo, and we need this investment rights deal in order to do that. So we'll hold on to this deal for a little bit until we finish building those gold mines. I don't want to bump them up, though, because I do want to finish what it is we're working on right now. Now let's take a look at our budget here, because we are a little bit in the red here, a little too much in the red. So first, let's take a look at construction goods. So if we look here, we're actually paying quite a bit for wood and quite a bit for fabric. So let's take a look at fabric in Svealand's local market, and it looks like we have a deficit of 70 units. Now, having local production of this is better than anything else. So we can get a little over half of it if we build 3 more levels of this. That'll take about 5,000 workers. So we would need about 15,000 workers for that. It would be a large chunk of the rest of the peasants available here, so we might not want to do that much. Now, we are losing some throughput here because of the torrential rains. We have 8 more months of torrential rains in Svealand. And so you can see we're getting negative 10% throughput to ranches. We're only getting a negative 5% throughput, though, because we're getting plus 5% for the economy of scale. So we can give and encourage agricultural industry in Svealand for the next 8 months. It'll give an addition to throughputs for ranches. So that'll make the fabric a little bit more affordable while we try to build more cotton plantations in our colonies. So we will add that in. All right, and so we unpause to let that update, and in the meantime, it looks like the Mana Party won the election. So we'll take a look at that in a second, but you can see, so fabric in the local market in Svealand increased a little bit, so we got 16 more units. So the price of fabric is a little bit better, and we do need to build some more wood here. So same thing with the ranches, more logging camps here will create, will take 5,000 workers. However, when we start running out of laborers, we can start using rail transport here. So we're going to build, well, first let's see how much we need. So we have a deficit of 254 units of logging here. So again, when we go back to our market, we are exporting quite a lot of 660 units. So for the time being, we're going to try to discourage a little bit of that trade in order to make our construction sectors a little bit more affordable. So we're going to up the tariff on the export to try to hold on to a little bit more, and in the meantime, build one more logging camp here. Now, our biggest expense are goods for government buildings, and so we can see paper we're paying 8K for, and paper is pretty expensive. We're exporting quite a bit of it. We want to be exporting it, so what we really need to be doing is just building more, which is what we're doing right now with these 3 paper mills in Jutland. So that will help us with the goods for government buildings. We're paying a lot for man of wars, though it does look like the price here is pretty level. So we just have an expensive navy at the moment. Now we're paying 3K in interest. So we have our urban buildings up for sale. Once the explosives factory and the fertilizer plants start hiring, they might sell, but we can also then look to rural buildings here. The most productive are the logging camps. Now I hesitate to put these up for sale because it's very possible the Hudson's Bay Company buys them, but it's also possible our Swedish Paper Corporation buys them. Although these are already up for sale. Now we can sell the cotton plantations. Now rural buildings only sell for 50K. We're 1.7 million in debt, so this isn't going to do too much. Now we do have a low interest rate here. It's 9.5%. So this isn't, we're not in crisis mode here or anything. But we'll put these cotton plantations up for sale and see what happens. All right, so they don't immediately sell. So we'll leave the budget as is for now. We'll see what happens after our paper mills are built to see how much cheaper the goods for government buildings are. So now taking a look at what happened with our election, we would like to stay out of an unacceptable government for a period of time so that we can lower the amount of radicals a little bit here. So we can stay in a contested government if we let the Mana Party and the armed forces in government and keep the People's Party and the Radical Party out. It looks like the Petite Bourgeoisie is going to join the Radical Party. So we will do this for now. If we get National Guard passed, we'll get plus 5% Petite Bourgeoisie political strength. And now the Petite Bourgeoisie are bound to the intelligentsia in the Radical Party, so we have the possibility of that in the next election. All right, well, we do see we now have another person trying to colonize the Niger Delta. Surprise, surprise, it's Great Britain. But we also have baking powder. Let's take a look at groceries in our market, and they're very expensive, but that's because we don't have any food industries. So we will tackle that in a little bit. Future cuts here. In this moment, we are exporting groceries. In retrospect, I should have added a high tariff to the export of groceries so that we hold on to all the ones we're importing, at least until we get some food industries built. So we can see now our private sector isn't getting dominated as much by the Hudson's Bay Company, which is good. We are building a little bit outside of the country, which is fine for now. All right, law advancement, so we gained 15% on that. All right, and so now our additional paper mills were built, though it does look like our company is going to build another one, which is nice. Our budget improved a little bit, about 2K. We are paying 1.12K for our ports. So let's take a look. So we'll take a look at the one in Svealand here. So yeah, it looks like the Hudson's Bay Company very much overbuilt the port. We have very low cost of merchant marines. We have a surplus of 43. Let's take a look at the world market and who needs them. It looks like France needs them quite a bit. Let's see if we can sell directly to them. Doesn't look like there's anything they immediately need, except for tools. We can sell them quite a bit of tools, actually. So there's a 20% chance that they take this. We're giving them trade privileges as well for it. We'll do this for 10 years because we are selling quite a bit of tools. If our tool situation changes, we might want to be able to renegotiate this. But there's only a 20% chance, but we'll see if they take it. All right, so it was declined. And we could always go the obligation route, which I'm tempted to do. Not only will we make a lot of money off of selling these tools, but we'll no longer have to subsidize the ports. Although we could try buying some stuff off of them. Here we go. So if we don't do the obligation, we buy some fancy clothes off of them. Now it looks like they will accept it. And in fact, maybe we'll lower this. There we go. So we'll buy just 50 fancy clothes off of them. We won't need to add obligations in. So we can send this on February 5th. So let's wait for then. All right, let's make this, again, last for 10 years. And we'll send the proposal. All right, there we go. You can see immediately it fixed our budget there. And now merchant marines are profitable. So let's go back to the ports. You can see now the ports are very profitable. All the ones we're subsidizing are running positive balances, except for Gotland. There we go. Now that we put it on the other production method, it can sell some merchant marines. So we're going to remove the subsidies on all of those. And now our budget is looking much better. And we're still on medium taxes and slightly high other stuff. In the midst of the debate surrounding National Guard, one of the country's leading playwrights, strongly associated with the landowners, has staged a widely acclaimed play whose politically laden theme makes no secret of the author's desire for the law to be passed. Yeah, so with this one, we'll take the plus 10% enactment success chance. And we can see the United States really wants those investment rights again, but we're going to decline that. All right, so you can see we moved up to 4th in production for paper. So we now need to make a little under 600 more units. Our company is now really selling them. And in fact, we should sell the ones we built because it'll get, if the company takes them, they'll get some added throughput bonus. So they're not taking them immediately. This is probably because they're about to build 2 more, but we'll keep it up for sale. So we do want them to be sold whenever they want to do it. Law progressed to drafting. So Norway's damaging relations. Looks like we haven't looked at their liberty desire in quite a bit. So to counter that, we're still amicable right now. When it goes lower, we can start improving relations to counterbalance that. So one thing we can do, we'll exempt them from service. Now the biggest things that are affecting this, the army power projection. So their army is fairly close to ours. We don't want to offer knowledge sharing because we'll get negative 10% technology spread. So one thing we can do is expand our military, which we haven't really been doing all that much, and we should start thinking about. All right, law progressed to voting. Now, one thing we can do for army power projection is we probably have more conscripts here to add. So it's not a lot, but once a National Guard passes, we'll have a lot more. And having the conscripts assigned to a conscription center does affect power projection. A group of Respectable musical composers teaching at the Arts Academy in Gotland have approached us. They have drawn attention to the alarming lack of a proper national anthem fit to invigorate our people's spirits. All right, so we'll get plus 20 prestige. If we take a look here, we're at 165. We need to get to 235 to be considered a great power. So we got a little ways to go. We are now at a point where we are starting to utilize debt. We have a healthy investment pool and our private sector can build at a good rate. We still have a lot to go in terms of growing our construction sectors, but we now have the benefit of being able to build more levels of construction while in debt and not run the risk of spiraling into bankruptcy. Something that should be noted, since we are now in 1856, something I overlooked in this run is the subjugation of Denmark. We do eventually subjugate Denmark in this run, however, I should have done it much earlier than where I do. I should have had them subjugated already so we can start to form Scandinavia now. This would have allowed us to get off of monarchy much sooner. I'll go more into this in the conclusion of the final episode where I look back on the whole run, but it is something to keep in mind in regards to where we are in the run currently. Nevertheless, the economy is growing at a healthy and sustainable rate, and we will soon have a prestige good in craft paper to sell on the world market. If you're enjoying the run, please consider giving the video a like and the channel a subscribe. Every time you do, I flash another image of a famous Swedish playwright that no one recognizes. A very big thank you to all the channel members for helping to keep this going. I can't tell you how much I appreciate that. That's it for now. As always, be awesome.